Hello and welcome back to the Reapers. Today we're in our Ka-50 Blackshark and we're looking at using the Shkval system to target a hostile. So first of all, what is the Shkval? It's a optical sensor. If you look in the front of the nose, you can see a glass patch there. Within that glass patch is a glorified camera at the end of the day, and we can use that camera for finding targets, locking targets and deploying weapons. Now we're not going to be deploying weapons now, we're just going to look at finding targets, tracking targets. It's going to be displayed to us in the Shkval screen here. The first thing I'm going to say is if you haven't got your screen on for some reason, it's going to be this switch here, so ensure that's on in your cold start procedure. Next, we're going to look at the keys that we're going to involve today, and there's going to be quite a lot of them, unfortunately, I'm going to have to say. We've got uncaged Shkval / designate target. We've got button targeting mode reset, helmet mounted sight off and on, target lock. We're going to have to slew with Shkval slew up, down, left and right. Shkval narrow view 23 times and 7 times, and target TV target frame increase size and decrease size. Okay. What we're going to need to do is uncage our Shkval. First of all, note our Shkval is by default caged or fixed to the bore sight of our aircraft. You know, basically there where the aircraft is pointing. We're going to press the uncage button. Now we have control of an uncaged Shkval. It's represented by this little circle here. If I use the slow keys, I can move that circle about. That is essentially where our camera is moving about. What I'm going to do purposefully is move it out of the limits of the HUD to help show the limits. So I've moved it out of my HUD so we can no longer see it anymore. So what we get now is this rectangle here showing the gimbal limits, the amount that we can pivot this camera, and where our Shkval is pointing at the moment. So we can see that we've got that much movement left and right, that much movement up, and lots of movement down, because this is for shooting ground targets, so it's going to have its maximum deviation downward. So I'm going to bring it back into frame now of the HUD. This is just showing that we can operate the Shkval outside of the HUD. And obviously this is what we're actually seeing in the Shkval camera. So we've got some bad guys out there. If we zoom in, hello bad guys, got some tanks or something down there. So we're going to manually slew this circle here onto those targets, and we can see that we can now see the targets on this, our Shkval screen. First of all, we can zoom in and zoom out with the key shown earlier, 23 zoom or 7 zoom. Next, let's have a look at the symbology on the Shkval screen here. We've got our gimbal limits and current slew angle in here. So if I were to slew left, you can see that is center, that is absolute gimbal limit, absolute gimbal limit. That is the center point there of the vertical, gimbal limit down there and gimbal limit up there. This is our current speed, but we usually, not always, but we usually get to be in a hover when we're looking through our Shkval, and you can see I put myself in a hover here, so we're not moving anywhere. Just keep everything super simple.
Also, by the way, when you are below 50 meters, you'll also get your radar altitude on your Shkval as you would on the bottom right. On the bottom right,
okay. We've got an attitude indicator here, this guy here and this guy here to just check our attitude in terms of roll. And we've got our target, what I call the target box, I think it's called a target frame, is this little chap right in the center here. And this is what we're going to be used to search for and to lock onto targets. Now we can use the frame size increase and decrease to change that. So I'm going to increase this. So essentially if I was looking for a very big target, I would increase the size like this. If I was looking for a very small target to lock onto, I would decrease the size like this. So we're going to have a look at our tanks, roughly set it to the right size. And it's what helps the Shkval system lock onto a target. We're essentially telling the Shkval here to look for a target that's about that big, fits in that box, and that's how it's going to help optically to find the target by means of contrast. I believe that's right, Shkval.
Yeah.
The next thing we can do is press target lock. We can press target lock. It doesn't need to be a near bad guy, but we can press target lock to get essentially a terrain lock on the ground. So I'm going to press target lock now. And we can see we've got a Russian TG there, so we currently have a terrain lock on the ground here. Now, we don't have any distance information. This is optical only. All we can see is this pretty picture. If we want distancing, we're going to have to put laser ranging on. That's this chap here. We've now got laser ranging on, and I'm going to move slightly and get a lock on the ground again. And there we can see that we've now got the range to where our intercept point on the terrain is there. And we can move that around like thus. Now, when we move it around like this, just take note that it's actually not updating the laser, it's guessing when we move around here. To actually update the laser, we're going to press lock again. And you can see when I press lock again, it changed slightly because it was no longer guessing, it was firing the laser again and getting the distance. So that's something to bear in mind. Out of interest, we can also see our Shkval location from a plan view. If we're on our Abris system, we click on nav here. It's going to be a little bit hard to see on this video, but you should see a little box kind of here and a yellow line, and that's where our Shkval is facing, and we can move that left and right and up and down and whatnot. So that gives us a kind of plan dimensional view of where that ares is. Right, I've moved that, so I'm going to press target lock again to update the distance there. And regarding the distance, the laser distance, it's all about employing weapons, checking that we're within limits of weapon limits and whatnot. Next, we're going to lock onto an actual target. So I'm going to move up to what I believe is a target. That chap there. I'm going to press lock again, and hopefully with the parameters set and with the light levels we've got, it will be able to find a lock. And it has. We know it's found a lock because it's got this different symbology with the target framing here, and we've got a TA now, so it's found a target, and it's updated the laser ranging accordingly. So it's important to point out we can actually use the laser in two modes, one for getting ranging and one for designating a target. To use certain weapons, or the Ka-25 missile, we need to use it in designation mode. I'm just going to show you quickly how to do that. Open that cover there, turn it to standby. Standby means designation mode, so that's just something you have to know to use that particular weapon. So we need back to ranging, and we'll keep it there for now.
When you do fire that laser in ranging mode, it will stay on for quite a while and you will get a countdown on your screen. You will afterwards have to wait for a certain cooldown. You can't just instantly use it again, otherwise the laser might burn out. And if you do want to quicken that process, there is a reset laser button next to the Norman standby switch that will automatically shut off the laser.
Right there. Next, I'm going to show that we've got some options down here, or we're just going to look at two of them today. If that tank was moving, and say he was just driving around at 20 knots or something, then we can press this button here, and that will allow us to track the moving target. Next is auto turn. This is quite a cool function. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unselect this target. To unselect a locked target, we have to press and hold our target lock, and then we can move about, and then it goes back to a TG, a terrain lock. Now I'm going to select a target, that guy there. I'm going to press lock. Let's lock this guy up, and now I'm going to press auto turn, and it's going to automatically keep our chopper turning to the target. It's this toggle function, so once it's on, it'll stay on until you turn it off. So if I went to choose another target, for instance, so I'm going to press and hold target lock, move over here, get that dude there, and the chopper's going to turn again. So with a mixture of being in auto hover here, we have a video on auto hover, by the way, if you want to know about that, and auto turn on, then it will always face the chopper like that.
Also, one thing to note, which is kind of hard to actually figure out in the current version because the lighting is broken. It's basically impossible to see which of these buttons are on, but as soon as you press the targeting mode reset button, which is a backspace by default, or also the reset button next to your left knee, all of these buttons will automatically turn off, all your weapons will be deselected, and your Shkval will kick.
Okay, so let's go on a couple more functions before we change the ambient light to something different. We're going to look for scan function, so I'm going to turn auto hover up and now. We can tell the Shkval to automatically slew left and right to search. Now it's not going to actually pick up on targets itself, instead it's going to allow us to pick up on the target. So I'm going to press and hold target lock just to get off this target for the time being. Terrain lock there. I'm going to check this chap here, which is our scan speed, essentially. Is it degrees per second,
I think it was degrees per second now.
Roger. What I'm going to do is I'm now going to press Shkval uncage again, and you can see it's now moving left. So it's now going to bounce left and right between about a 10-degree corridor, and it's not going to search for targets itself, it's just allowing you to search for targets during this. And at any point, if we want to stop, we can just press uncage again, ping, and it stops searching. And now I've got manual control of it again. Now we're going to look at the helmet mounted sight and how we can slave the Shkval to the helmet mounted sight. It's a really cool feature, so we can use the helmet mounted sight button as we saw earlier, or we can press it on manually there if you like. And we've got this little chap here. Here is our reticle. So things that we can do. Well, first of all, we can move it about within the slew limits. Well, any slew limits actually. But if we go outside the slew limits of the Shkval, you can see we have it flashing. And if we go outside the slew limits of the helmet, then we have absolutely nothing at all. Next, I'm going to choose one of these tanks. So I'm going to aim my head. I'm using track IR to do this at that, and I'm going to press Shkval uncage there. And you can see it's just slaved it to where I had my helmet, or there, or there. And that's how that works. And then if you want to make small adjustments, you can use the cursor keys slewing for doing that. Next, I can also press and hold the Shkval uncage, and now it constantly is fixed to where my helmet is. And for several reasons where you could do this, maybe gunning a moving target would be something would be useful like this. And as soon as I release the Shkval uncage, ping, it then stops in that position on a terrain lock or a target lock, depending what was there. One thing to mention at this point, if you are in a night mission and you equip night vision goggles, which you do with the use of the ground crew, then you can't have this helmet mounted display. You can have one or the other. They are mutually exclusive. So if you're flying with night vision goggles on and you're wondering why you can't use your helmet mounted sight, then that's why. We have fast forwarded and it's rapidly becoming evening now. So there's much less light. So the first thing to notice is that although we can see this tanks optically with our eyes, we won't be able to actually get a lock on them, like a proper target lock. I'm going to go there and I'm going to press target lock, and you see you can't get a target lock. So in terms of actually deploying weapons at the targets, we're going to have to settle with a terrain lock, aim at the base of the vehicle basically, and use our override. We'll cover that in the weapons videos. But what we can do, I mean this isn't a very extreme darkness obviously, but it's going to get worse, is change the settings to help us see these targets easier in the dark.
Underneath your Shkval, if you go down a bit, you have 3 black knobs. The 2 ones on the right are brightness as well as contrast for the TV. The one on the left is just for your helmet mounted sight. If you play with them, particularly with the contrast one, you can change the contrast and also the brightness to allow you to see even when it's pretty dark out.
So yep, so I'm putting the brightness up like this, and then I'm going to put the contrast up like this. Yep.
I think it's a little bit bad outside to see a proper difference, but...
yeah, no, I've made it much easier to see the targets now. Okay, so that's there, and the other one's for the helmet mounted displays, that's fine.
Yeah.
And also we can change the symbology from white to black to make the symbology easier to see depending on whether we're day or night.
Yeah. One thing to note, directly underneath the TV contrast thing, there is a selector that says Shkval optics adjustment. This is actually supposed to be used under these circumstances, for day mode, night mode and the like, but this is not implemented.
Right, I hope that helps. Go and do some Shkval targeting, and we'll see you later.